Hey, what is up guys? It's Brendan here, and today we are here with Zach Ramel from Apex Brokerage, and today we're going to be talking about how to buy and sell a small business. So, the first question most people have when they're looking to buy or sell a small business is, well, why would someone buy or sell a small business in the first place?
That's a great question, Brendan. So, when we talk about, first of all, when we talk about buying a business, let's talk about why someone would get into being a business owner in the first place, right? So when you think about why someone would want to own their own business, you look at, the unlimited income potential. Most people are locked in a salaried position working for someone else, and that's another key point there. They want to be their own boss. They want to do what they want to do. They want to stop listening and obeying orders that they don't actually want to do. And a lot of the times it's a passion play. So, you have someone who maybe isn't even in it for the money, but we've had buyers who have quit high-paying jobs to do things that they're just really passionate about that don't necessarily make a lot of money, but make them the most happy in life.
Gotcha. So more so choosing how they want to spend their time more freely.
Right. And so that's why someone would want to own their own business. But when you talk about now buying a business, now you kind of close that window of opportunity for a lot of people, because when you talk about buying business, you have to have money to do that, right?
Right.
So, and when you talk about why would someone buy a business, the key difference there is, when you look at buying a business, you look at, okay, how do these businesses get valued? And so the way that businesses are mostly valued is based on cash flow. And probably a lot of your viewers probably know about that with all the website stuff. But Cash flow is essentially the cash that goes in your pocket at the end of the year before taxes, after all of your costs of goods sold, all your expenses, everything like that. And, businesses are really priced based on cash flow. So when you look at, okay, so why would someone buy a business? It's to get that higher cash flow, typically. Right, or to walk into something that's already established. You don't necessarily want the headaches of trying to start a business yourself. If you have the cash, it's a good play for a lot of people. And talk about if you sometimes it is a lot less risky as well, because if you're starting a business from scratch, a much higher probability of failure as opposed to coming into something that's already turnkey.
Right, it's already moving, the gears are turning, all you need to do is, you just need to expand on those systems, look for growth opportunities, things like that. So then, as far as growth opportunities, well, why would someone want to sell their asset then? Why would they want to sell that asset that's bringing them cash flow?
That's a good question. And right now we're pretty much in the golden age of business brokerage. So really from the sell side of things. Because right now you see a lot of baby boomers who are looking to retire, and these baby boomers are the people who are like, let's pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. And back in my day, I got a $5,000 loan. And I started this business that's now worth $1 million, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of those people in that age group that are looking to retire. And the thing is, a lot of business owners don't even know that you can sell a business. They think, hey, if my son or daughter doesn't want it, a family member doesn't want it, or I can't give it to somebody else, I'm just going to have to close the doors.
Right.
But now a lot of people are kind of coming around to the idea of, hey, this is actually a possibility for me. I can actually sell this business. And so I'd say the main reasons are either you're burned out because it's a lot of responsibility, a lot of hard work in a lot of businesses, unless you are sort of absentee and have management in place already. But you still have some stresses and all the responsibilities there. Or, someone's looking to retire, like I just said, retirement, burnout, looking to get into something else. Maybe they're looking to take a step back. So a lot of times we also see business owners that want to either sell a piece of the business, kind of divide it up a bit.
Okay.
Or they even look to partner with someone else just to take some of that responsibility off of their shoulders.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So then, as far as different ways that someone could buy a business, you talked about someone might want to sell it. Obviously there's brokers, but what are different ways that someone might buy a business? Maybe the structure behind it. Did someone have to pay all their cash? Did someone have to pay $1 million, like you said, for a business?
Right.
Because that's a lot of cash to come up with.
That's a ton of cash. Good question. So typically what we see most of the time is the seller. So say you have a business, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You say we have a business for $100,000. That's the list price. Maybe the seller's not backing down from that. The buyer's going to have to come with $100,000 in some form, right, to buy that business. So we typically see a seller say, okay, well, I understand that not every buyer is going to have this much cash or the ability to come up with this cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do is maybe I'll finance 20% of it. So if a buyer comes with $80,000 in cash, I will take a note for $20,000, and that's called seller financing. And so with that, typically, we'll see something like, $20,000 would be paid back to the seller over 3 to 5 years with, an interest rate of X%.
Okay. Is seller financing more typical than, say, an SBA loan or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, no. Well, just because of the market we're in now.
Mm-hmm.
But typically seller financing is pretty common. And what we see, typically it's a very small percentage of the purchase price that a seller's willing to finance. But, we've seen some where sellers willing to finance half or more of their purchase price. If they're really confident in their business,
mm-hmm.
they really want to see, that buyer succeed, and they don't mind sticking around a little bit because, if the seller is willing to finance more than half or a good chunk of their business, they have to have a lot of faith in that buyer, that the buyer's going to actually keep that business going and not run it into the ground.
True. And even some scenarios, maybe the seller stays on with the business and continues to work
Right.
almost like an employee on maybe a consulting basis for guidance on maybe a 60-day term, right?
Right. So typically what we see is a seller will stay on with the business, and this is obviously just case by case, but a typical time period for a seller to assist a buyer with transition is about 4 weeks.
4 weeks? Okay.
But, after that, if the buyer needs it, a lot of the times a seller may be willing to stay on just longer, just because. Or they, like you said, they will enter into an employment agreement, some sort of employment agreement, where they'll offer their services in either, a managerial position or just a consulting agreement, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But also to go back to answering the question about the other ways you can buy a business, obviously,
Sure.
If you have all that cash, great, you can do that. But the other big way to do that is to get small business administration financing, like you alluded to earlier.
Right.
So the SBA is a government-backed program. I don't want to kind of give too much information.
Sure.
But just to kind of give the high-level overview, the SBA is a government-backed program that sort of is just great for financing buyers for either commercial properties or businesses that don't necessarily have all the cash. If typically what we see is a buyer will have to come up with 10 to 20% of the cash of the purchase price as a down payment, and the SBA will finance the rest. And typically, in order to do that, the SBA is very strict, so they'll want to see that the buyer is a very strong borrower, the business is a really strong business, it can support the buyer and support and allow them to pay off the debt of the loan. And typically they want to see that a buyer has a decent amount of experience and the bandwidth to run that business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only problem with SBA that, we typically see is just the long loan process, the long closing process.
So some sellers might not enjoy that longer closing process, maybe similar to how different loans work in real estate,
Right.
similar in SBA, or
Yeah.
small businesses rather. So as far as the ways to sell a business, then kind of the same thing as the
Kind
ways
of the
to
same
buy
thing.
it.
Right. Just on the flip side, right?
But on the flip side, okay. So then what's the number one piece of advice for someone buying a business first? Just focus on buying first.
Number one piece of advice for someone buying a business, I would say get your finances in order. Get your finances in order and really just set your expectations properly. Because we have a lot of, and just on both sides, and this is common in real estate as well as business brokerage. You have, people with $100,000 in cash and they want a business for $1 million.
Right.
Temper your expectations with reality. I'd say that's the biggest thing. Obviously, get your debt to income ratio good. Go into something that, but yeah, I think one of the bigger things is also just go. There's a reason you're doing this. There's a reason you're trying to buy a business, and stick to that. If it's because it's a passion play, seriously, just go for that.
Mm-hmm. And just keep looking until you find something that fits your criteria.
You don't want to. No. You definitely don't want to sort of bend and. I mean, obviously, you may have to compromise a little bit.
Sure. But
you don't want to. You got to trust your gut on these things, really, because a lot of people say that a house is the biggest investment of your life. Not if you're buying a business. It's not.
True.
So and you don't have to potentially give 40 hours a week to working on a house. So you gotta really like what you're doing. If you buy a business and you're going to be working in it, you have to really like what you're getting into and be prepared to stick with it.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's really good advice from the buy side. And then as far as the sell side, I know you touched on like someone looking to retire or exit from the business for some sort of reason. Maybe there are time constraints or maybe they've just been working at for so long.
Right.
They want to try something new. So what's the number one piece of advice for selling a business?
Well, two come to mind just immediately. I'd say one, again, just set your expectations in line with reality. Because, we have, I always like to go back to my, I always like to go back to my economics days.
Mm-hmm.
Back when, learning about sort of the psychology of like buying and selling things just in the economy, right?
Yeah.
So there's this thing called the Endowment Effect. It's not what you think. But it's where someone typically values their own asset much higher than others would value their asset.
Because it's their baby. They've been putting hours and hours, like you said.
Exactly. Some people, we have several sellers who put 30 plus years, 40 plus years into this business, and they're like, well, I can't take less than this for my business.
Right.
It's like, I understand where you're coming from, but it's just like, the market is what the market is, and the demand for your business is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like you can say that you're not going to accept less than X amount, but you may never get that offer.
True.
So you have to be in line with reality, and you have to meet that buyer in the middle. Really, find
the negotiation process and kind of find that middle ground there. Any advice as far as negotiation process between buyer and seller? And I know that's what you guys work on primarily as a brokerage.
Yeah. So as far as negotiating between buyers and sellers. From our perspective, it's really about trying to see what's most important to them, to both the buyer and the seller. Try to, again, see if we can meet in the middle. I'll be honest, we have some sellers, and I've got one right off the top of my head that is stubborn as a mule. And,
sure.
And we've had his business listed for years, 3 years.
Wow.
And he's gotten very, very strong offers. He got a very strong offer during COVID when he shouldn't have had an offer like that.
Sure.
Due to the nature of his business, but he does not want to bend at all. But some sellers or some people just don't need to get out that bad.
Yeah.
Don't need to buy that.
They can be patient.
And that's what he's doing.
Sure. So where can people find you? Where can the people watching this video find Zach?
Yeah, so you can, I would suggest that you can Google Apex Brokerage, residential, commercial, and business brokerage, real estate firm. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Yep, and we'll have a link, the first link in the description. It will take you right to their website. Cool. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, Brandon.
I don't know. I did that. I don't know.